Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm David and today we are doing a guide on looking after a very fun type of isopod, and that is Porcellio Scaber. They're also known as larvae, or some people just call them the scabers. I think they're a very interesting type of isopod and they're quite low maintenance, so I thought I'd do a quick guide for you. Now, Porcellio Scaber come in a variety of colours. Most of them tend to be black, orange or red, but you do get white variants and all sorts of variants and colour variants in between depending on how they've bred and where you get them from. They are quite interesting isopod species to observe because they're a bit angrier than other isopods. We have lots of isopods here and all of them tend to get on with each other. They'll climb over each other, maybe they'll chase each other a little bit, but these scabers, when they want something, they tend to bully other scabers away, and it's not something I've seen in many isopods. They can be very territorial, they can be very angry to each other, and while they won't hurt each other necessarily, I've never seen that happen, it is advisable to provide plenty of food sources, which we'll talk about later. They are also quite active when you have small colonies. Most isopod colonies, when they're small, tend to be a little bit quieter. They don't tend to do much. They tend to sort of stick to themselves and focus on just growing and breeding. These guys are quite active even when you have a few of them, because we haven't got a big colony of them, but they're constantly roaming around and constantly interested in their environment. So let's start off with your Scaber enclosure. Depending on how big a colony you have and if you want to breed quicker or not, you can get anything from quite a small exoterra enclosure all the way through to a critter keeper like we've got, which is basically like 25 centimetres long by I think 15 depth and 15 height. That's quite a big one. It's quite adequate for quite a large colony. With regards to your enclosure, you want to have a decent layer of substrate. Now these guys don't burrow as much as other species. You will see other species burrow a lot. These guys just don't really want to do it. They tend to stay on the surface or tend to want to just burrow just the surface level of substrate. But having a layer of substrate is very useful and natural for them. You want plenty of hides for them. They will love to hide, just like all isopods. Lots of leaf litter, some decorations, a theme if you want them. I kind of went for a volcanic theme with our guys, and they seem to love enjoying climbing into the volcano and out again, which looks like a little lava eruption. Kind of cool. Use some common sense for your setup, make sure it's substrate, make sure all the goodies are there so they can have a nice environment. One other thing that's really important to have in your enclosure is a hydration station. I think Aquarium Max Pets coined that term, where you have some sphagnum moss on one side and you maintain a moisture area, because as we'll talk about later with humidity, these guys don't like as much, but they do need some, just like all isopods. So with regards to temperature for these guys, room temperature is perfectly adequate. They're pretty active at a normal room temperature, which is about 20 Celsius. Can't remember the Fahrenheit conversion, sorry those of you watching in America. They will be active and they'll be okay at this temperature. You don't want to let it get too cold, so if it gets really cold where you are, you may want to provide a heat source. Generally, there's not going to be any issues there at all. Now, humidity. Humidity is a bit different for these guys from many other isopods. Most of our isopods like it quite damp and quite humid. These guys do not like it at all. You want your humid area, but you want quite steep moisture gradients. So these guys benefit from having quite a wet area with their hydration station, and then a very steep gradient where it's almost dry on the opposite side. You don't want it to be completely dry, because you would want to add some springtails maybe in there to clean up some mess or isopod droppings, etc. Also some mold, but you don't want too much. It needs to be a very fine balance. I find when I get it too moist, they get less active. They want to be on the substrate less, but when it dries out, they're quite happy to go to the moist area and stay in the dry area for most of their time. Now diet, these guys don't like their protein sources as much. I know a lot of people say you do, but for ours it could be just our little colony. They like a little bit, it's like fish flakes, but anything else is not really of interest. What they do like is their vegetables. They'll eat their leaf litter and they'll eat their vegetables. That always goes very quickly, but protein you can take or leave. The other essential you want to provide for them is a bit of cuttlefish. All isopods require this for their calcium, so you need to have a bit of cuttlefish in there just to help them with that. Generally, if you provide their leaf litter, they've got a decent substrate, you've got a bit of veg in there occasionally, and maybe a bit of protein supplements, you're also going to be completely fine and happy. A quick note on breeding and how they are as pets. Breeding wise, a smaller enclosure will get them to breed quicker. If they have a larger one, they'll be exploring it more. Generally, you want to provide extra protein if you want them to breed, but with scabers they can be quite fussy. And also as pets, they're quite easy. These guys have nibbled me. I think, again, I've noticed this on other channels, but it never really hurts. And again, I tend to find it's more interesting just to observe them rather than put my hand in there unless I absolutely have to for husbandry reasons. Hopefully you found this guide useful. If you did and want to let me know, drop it down in the comments or subscribe. If you have anything else you want to ask, happy to hear from you. But in the meantime, from me and my scabers, take care and see you later.